Microjig, maker of the gripper. Work safer, work smarter.
For the lumber for the lamp, I'm going to use some scraps of peely that was left over from another project. And I'm going to try and see if I can get everything from this single board. These 4 boards that I just ripped will make up the posts for the lamp. The next thing I'm going to do is flatten one face and then square one adjoining edge on all 4 posts. Before planing the lamp posts to thickness, I'm going to rip them at the table saw so that the planer doesn't have to work as hard. Following the same process I used for the posts, I milled enough lumber to get all the rails that I'm going to need, and these will later be cut to length. With all the posts and rail stock dimensioned to thickness, I can cut them to their final length. For the joinery for this lamp, I'm going to use floating mortise and tenons. And to make all of the ingrain mortises and all of the rails, I'm going to use my horizontal mortiser. I need to make the mortises in the posts next, and because the posts are so thin, when I go to make those mortises, they're actually going to connect on the inside. And because of that, when I go to make the tenons, I'm going to need to miter the ends of the tenons so that the tenons don't hit on the inside. It's kind of a pain, but it's a necessary evil. I need to make the loose tenon stock next, and I have a piece of loose tenon stock that was left over from an older project, and it's a 1/4 inch thick, which is perfect for this project. So I'm just going to recycle this for the current project because we're all about recycling here at Garage Woodworks. As I mentioned already, a few of the mortises meet on the inside of the posts. So that requires that the loose tenon stock for those mortises be mitered so that they don't hit on the inside. So in order to make those miters, I'm using a piece of scrap wood and it has a mortise on the end, and I'll use my miter gauge at the table saw to cut the miters. I'm making a rabbet in all the rails so that I have a place to glue the rice paper after the lamp is glued together. And I'm using a 1/2 inch spiral bit, and I'm only using a portion of the bit. I have the fence set back a 1/4 inch from the front of the bit, and I have the height of the bit set to a 1/4 inch. Okay, so I made a small change. Instead of having this rail with a rabbet on top and a rabbet on the bottom and breaking up the 2 pieces of rice paper into 2 sections, I'm going to replace this piece with another piece of wood that will be flush on this side, but it'll give me, essentially this entire section will be at the same depth as this rabbet. Now this way I can make one long piece of rice paper for one panel, and it'll be a whole lot easier to assemble. In the bottom of the bottom 2 rails, I need to make a rabbet for the component which is going to hold the light fixture. And that piece is going to get glued on at the very end with a half lap joint. While the glue is drying, I'm going to start work on the two decorative arches that are going to go on the very top of the lamp. I have the blanks for both arch pieces stuck together with some double stick tape, and I drew an arch onto the top one, and I'll cut both of them out at the bandsaw at the same time. I need to next make the component which is going to hold the lamp socket, and it's going to get lapped into these grooves that we created earlier in the bottom of the lamp. Now I just need to lap this piece into the bottom, and I'm going to make a mark with my marking knife right on the bottom, and that'll tell me where to start the lap joint. Now I just need to make a hole in the center for the lamp socket. I've sanded everything down to 220, and now it's time to apply the finish. I'm going to use a finish that I've never used before. This is Armor Seal by General Finishes. After the finish dried, I took a small paintbrush and I applied glue all the way around the inside of the lamp and the rabbets, and then I just applied my rice paper, carefully not to get the glue onto the rice paper where it's going to be visible. Then I wired my lamp socket and attached it to the bottom of the lamp and secured it with a nut. To try and keep the heat output to a minimum, I'm using an LED bulb in the lamp. Unlike the vast majority of other YouTube woodworking shows, my videos at Garage Woodworks have always been Google ad free. And because of this, I rely heavily on support from my viewers. Your support would go towards buying supplies and help to offset some of the costs associated with producing this show. I really hope that you'll consider supporting my show by clicking the Patreon link in the first comment you'll find below and seeing what I have to offer my Patreon community. Thanks for watching, guys, and I'll see you next week.